So before we climb the ladder of IRB review, we have to determine, one, are our agents conducting some type of activity? Two, does the activity meet the definition of regulated research or clinical investigation? And three, does the regulated research or clinical investigation involve a human subject? If all three are yes, then we determine what level of IRB review is required. IRB review is largely determined by risk. Okay, so let's start from the bottom. The first level of IRB review is exempt review. If an activity that a researcher is conducting is determined exempt, this means that the activity is exempt from the entirety of the federal regulations. One must still follow basic ethical principles. However, the intricacies of common rule, you know I'm going to say it, 45 CFR 46, do not apply. Now, FDA has their own exempt categories, which differ significantly than HHS, and we're not going to go into that for this presentation. In order to be determined exempt, the research activities must fall within one of 6 categories and be no greater than minimal risk. For example, surveys or interviews that don't involve children may fall under exempt category 2, or research that involves a focus on educational practices, which can include kids, may fall under exempt category 1. This is the most basic application of the exempt categories. Now, some institutions may place additional requirements on exempt research, such as requiring an information sheet. There's also variability in who may make an exempt determination. Now, most institutions designate the IRB office, so it'd be an IRB staff person that would most likely be doing this determination. However, it could also be an IRB member or an IRB chair. Either is acceptable. The only restriction that the federal regulators is that they recommend that the researcher not make their own exempt determination. I think we can figure out why. Another thing to note is that an exempt determination is a determination. Okay, it's not an IRB approval. Exempt determinations do not carry an approval period, although some institutions do implement them. Okay, so what if none of the activities that your agents are doing fit into any of the exempt categories? Well, then we look at expedited. So like exempt, expedited review activities fall into distinct categories. A big difference between exempt and expedited is that expedited review is IRB review, and therefore the entirety of the regulations apply. As such, depending on how your IRB is set up, the review and approval may be from an IRB staff person, an IRB member, or the IRB chair. The overall research also may not be more than minimal risk. Now, FDA also subscribes to these expedited categories. For example, expedited category 1 deals with clinical studies of drugs and medical devices. Of course, there's restrictions, and consent is expected. If not possible, the IRB may issue a waiver of consent if all justification is met. So if you've looked at the exempt and expedited categories and the activities of your agent do not fit into any of those categories, or if the research involves more than minimal risk or the risk is uncertain, the last and final review category is full board, also known as convened IRB. The research will be required to be reviewed by the IRB panel, which is comprised of experts and lay people from various academic, medical, or other disciplines.